How's it going, everybody? Handsome Dan here with episode 3 of the Grand Tournament. If you're just joining us, be sure to check out the previous 2 episodes if you'd like to see how we got to this point, or if you don't want any spoilers for our current progress in the tournament. The link to the full playlist can be found in the description below. Let's take a look at the scoreboard before we get into today's game. Caleb is sitting pretty right now at 2 wins, which means once again he has to choose his deck first. The rest of us will choose our decks through blind pick right after. With someone so far ahead now, it's time for us to start thinking about matchups and bringing counter picks into the equation. Caleb's going to start us off with his signature deck, Ilharg the Raze-Boar. This is a deck all about trying to ramp with mana rocks and take advantage of Ilharg's triggered ability to cheat in big creatures and smash his opponent's faces as soon as possible. He mulls down to 6, but he keeps a starting hand with Mountain, Soul Ring, Arcane Signet, Anger, Faithless Looting, and Insult Injury. Jelly's going to try to keep up with Ilharg's aggression and will play Multani, Maro-Sorcerer. Jelly's deck aims to play your typical Elf Ball package to ramp out while growing opponents' hands with group hug effects. He's then going to use stacks and prison type cards to create advantage and punch down with Multani. Jelly's starting hand includes a Forest, Mystifying Maze, Mosswort Bridge, Sylvan Scrying, Priest of Titania, Worldly Tutor, and Realms Uncharted. Derek's going to be playing his Toshiro Umezawa deck. This deck is dubbed Murder Tribal, looking to control the board with instant speed removal to get maximum value out of Toshiro. His goal is to protect himself from big creature threats like Ilharg until he can win with an explosive finisher. Derek's going to keep a hand with Price of Fame, the Biblioplex, Cabal Ritual, Shadow Spear, Swamp, Morbid Opportunist, and Baleful Mastery. And against my better judgment, I'm bringing Sarulf back for the 3rd time in a row. I'm sure you're all tired of seeing this deck struggle, but I wanted to make sure that I had my most removal-heavy deck ready to protect myself from Ilharg. I have to mull down to 6 myself, but I keep a decent hand with Golgari Rot Farm, Overgrown Tomb, Cabal Coffers, and Tomb, Snuff Out, Siphon Mind, and I'll be sending back a Torment of Hailfire. Jelly's going to win the opening die roll to go first, so let's go ahead and get into the action. Jelly's going to start us off by playing a Mosswort Bridge. It's going to come in tapped, and he's going to hide away a card before passing. Caleb is going to immediately fly off the handle and play a Mountain to cast a Soul Ring, use the Soul Ring to cast an Arcane Signet, and then use the Arcane Signet to cast a Faithless Looting, discarding an Anger. The rest of us are already sweating buckets. Over to my turn, and I can only play an Overgrown Tomb tapped, and then I'll pass. Derek's going to play a Biblioplex as land for turn, and then tap it to cast a Shadow Spear. We're back over to Jelly now, who's going to play a Forest as land for turn, and then cast a Priest of Titania. Now we get to Caleb, who fortunately does not have another land drop in hand. We breathe a sigh of relief as he plays a Mind Stone instead, and then flashes back Faithless Looting. He will find a Spine Rock Knoll, but it'll come in tapped and allow Caleb to hide away a card. Now it's to me, so I'll just play a Cabal Coffers as land for turn, and then I'll pass. Derek will go ahead and play a Swamp for his turn, and then he'll pass as well. We're going to move back to Jelly now, who's going to cast a Worldly Tutor on his upkeep. He's going to use it to get a Tireless Provisioner. He'll play a Mystifying Maze as land for turn, and then use it to cast that Tireless Provisioner. Now it's Caleb's turn, which means it's time for Ilharg to come out. He'll go ahead and cast Ilharg, but with no blockers available, I can't take the risk, so I cast a Snuff Out to destroy Ilharg, losing 4 life. Caleb has nothing else after that, so on his end step, I'll go ahead and cast Entomb, choosing to put a Life in the Loam in my graveyard. Back to my turn, and I've spent my 1 lifeline now, so I'll go ahead and play a Golgari Rot Farm, bouncing the Cabal Coffers back to my hand. If nothing else, I'll pass. Derek is also biding his time, and so he's going to do what his deck does the most often, which is play a Swamp as land for turn, and then pass. We'll now go to Jelly's turn, where he's going to play a Wooded Foothills as land for turn, making a treasure from the Tireless Provisioner. He'll then crack the Wooded Foothills for a Forest, getting another treasure, and then he'll use his mana to cast his commander, Multani. With this remaining mana, he'll go ahead and cast the Hidden Away card, Howling Mine. Back to Caleb, who's going to draw an extra card from Howling Mine, and then play a Mountain as land for turn. This means that Ilharg is back, so Caleb's going to swing at me for revenge for killing him the first time. On attack, Ilharg will trigger and drop a Terror of Mount Velis, giving Caleb's creatures double strike. He'll swing the dragon at Jelly, and neither of us can block. Now we'll go back to me, where I'm going to cast an Explorer and drop down a Verdant Catacombs as my first land and a Woodland Chasm as my second. I'll try to hold up mana to deter Ilharg from attacking me, but Derek's going to throw me a bone on my end step and cast the Price of Fame to destroy Ilharg again. On Derek's turn, he's going to cast a Cabal Ritual, and then use the mana to cast a Sedgemoor Witch. With nothing else, he's going to hold up some mana and then pass. We're now at the start of turn 5, where Jelly's going to go ahead and cast a Sylvan Scrying to get a Misty Rainforest, which he's going to play as land for turn to get a treasure. He's then going to cast the Triumph of the Hordes to give all his creatures +1/+1 trample and infect. This means that he can punch anybody for lethal, so at this point he goes to combat and decides to take Caleb out of the game by swinging Multani at him. No one has anything that they can or want to do to respond, and so Caleb's going to go ahead and die here. Now with one less player at the table, at Jelly's end step, I'm going to go ahead and crack my Verdant Catacombs to go get a swamp. With Ilharg gone, the pressure's off for a little bit, but Multani's still a threat, and I need to get a board state going. I'll play a Cabal Coffers and cast Garruk Wildspeaker, then use his plus ability to untap some lands and then cast Sarulf. Then I'll pass. Derek also sees that Jelly could be the next big threat, and so he'll play an Arcane Lighthouse as his land for turn to hopefully be able to answer Multani, who has Shroud. He'll hold up his mana and then pass. However, on Derek's end step, Jelly recognizes that there's counterplay available, and so he's going to go ahead and crack his Misty Rainforest to get a forest and also a treasure. This is going to give Sarulf a counter, as will the 2 treasures that Jelly sacrifices next. He'll use the mana to go ahead and cast Realms Uncharted, choosing Blighted Woodland, Ghost Quarter, Strip Mine, and Wasteland as his options for me to choose from. We put Strip Mine and Wasteland in his graveyard and give him the other 2. Now during his turn, Jelly's going to go ahead and play the Ghost Quarter that he got, getting a treasure. He'll then go ahead and swing at Derek with Multani for a whopping 16. Derek's going to respond by activating the Arcane Lighthouse, and then casting Baleful Mastery for its regular cost, choosing to allow me to draw. This is going to trigger his Sedgemoor Witch, and also exile Multani. During Jelly's second main phase, he'll go ahead and use the Ghost Quarter on the Arcane Lighthouse, which will give Sarulf 2 more counters from the permanents going to the graveyard. With a little more time to breathe on my turn, I have some plans brewing, so I'll choose not to trigger Sarulf, and then I'll dredge Life from the Loam for my first draw, and take a normal draw for my second. I'll tap my mana and use Garruk's Uptick ability to cast a Rishkar's Expertise. But Derek's going to respond by casting a Sudden Edict on me, forcing me to sacrifice Sarulf. This is going to trigger the Sedgemoor Witch and prevent me from drawing any cards, but I'll resolve the free spell from Rishkar's to go ahead and cast a Harmonize. I draw 3 cards, and then I'll play a Bojuka Bog to exile Derek's graveyard in retaliation. With nothing else to do, I'll go ahead and pass. Derek's going to go to his turn now and play a Swamp as land for turn, and then equip his Sedgemoor Witch with the Shadow Spear. He's then going to go to combat, swinging at Jelly, who chooses not to block. Derek's then going to go ahead and cast a Morbid Opportunist. We'll then go to Derek's end step, where Jelly's going to flash in a Yeva, Nature's Herald, and then now be able to flash in a Karametra's Acolyte. Now we're on the Jelly's actual turn, where he's going to play a Blighted Woodland as land for turn, getting a treasure. He's then going to go ahead and cast a Ritual of Subdual, which is terrible news for both me and Derek. I'll respond by casting a Vampiric Tutor, but as I'm looking through my deck, unfortunately I remember that I didn't put a Force of Vigor in this deck. I'll get another card instead, and Derek's also going to go ahead and cast his Vampiric Tutor, triggering a Sedgemoor Witch. Jelly's then going to use his remaining mana to cast Multani, and then pass. With no way to produce colored mana on my turn, I play the only answer I could find in my deck, which is a Blast Zone, and I use Garruk and all of my mana to pump it up as much as possible. It ends up with 6 counters on it, but with no other mana available, I have to go ahead and pass. Derek also has no color mana available, so now he'll play a Cabal Coffers and then cast Snuff Out on Jelly's Karametra's Acolyte, triggering the Sedgemoor Witch again. That's going to be it for Derek after that. Now on Jelly's turn, he's going to pay the upkeep cost of Ritual of Subdual, and then he's going to go ahead and cast Life from the Loam to get back his Strip Mine. He'll play it as land for turn and use it on the Blast Zone to destroy it. Derek feels like he's seen this story before, and he's going to make a comment to Jelly about the similarity in his decks.
I'm trying to figure out is why you have 2 decks that are the same.
They different. One's killing with damage, one's not killing.
They're all life in the world. They're all life in the
Hey, Tolerant cannot be one based on
If you can play life in the world.
You're right, it could.
Unfortunately, with no colored mana, all Derek and I have are snide comments as Jelly then casts an Overwhelming Stampede. This is going to give all of his creatures plus 16, plus 16, and trample, making Multani lethal commander damage over to Derek, and the rest of his creatures lethal over at me. With no way for us to respond, Jelly's going to kill both of us and take Game 3 of the Grand Tournament. Jelly's decision to play Multani worked out pretty well in his favor in this game. Since Derek and I both opted to keep single target removal to deal with Ilharg, Jelly was able to build up his board unpunished and generate a lot of value from a much less obvious threat in Tireless Provisioner. While we were able to answer Multani for a short while, neither Derek nor I were prepared to have to deal with a Ritual Subdual, which ultimately led to our demise. Caleb kept a very risky but high reward hand, but unfortunately he stumbled a little bit with his opening mana to prevent him from really going off. With the entire table focused on him, however, it was always going to be an uphill battle, especially in a deck that usually has very few blockers and relies heavily on the commander. He did about the most that he could with that much attention focused on him. In Derek's case, he simply wasn't ready to have to deal with two aggressive threats back to back. Murder Tribal really thrives whenever it has more time, but Derek wasn't ever able to cast Toshiro and really get his control game going. This was especially stopped because of the Ritual Subdual, as enchantments are very difficult to answer in mono black, so Derek's only way out was to hope that Jelly was killable immediately after the ritual dropped. As for me, things were going pretty well for a change, but getting Sarulf killed and then getting locked out by the Ritual Subdual was ultimately my demise. I might have been able to survive had Derek not killed Sarulf during the Rishkar's expertise, but it would have relied on me drawing a cheap enough answer like an Assassin's Trophy or a Nature's Claim for me to have been able to deal with the ritual as soon as it dropped. The lesson to be learned here is to always make sure you diversify your removal packages in Commander. Not only should you try to have answers to every type of spell or permanent, but it never hurts to have cards that have an alternate casting cost or remove through alternate means to deal with things like Shroud or not having access to colored mana. Let's go ahead and go back to the scoreboard now, where Jelly's now put one on the board. Although Caleb might have gotten destroyed in this game, he is still in the lead at 2 wins and remains the biggest threat. So let us know how you think things are going to shake out in the next game, and who's going to win, and how we're going to respond to what just happened. That'll be it for episode 3 though, so as always, thanks for watching, and make sure to stay tuned for the next one.